بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم
ألف لام ميم تنزيل الكتاب لا ريب فيه من رب العالمين.
Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. It is a shame that my voice is like this because these two ayat, they are beautiful, as have been the previous ones. But these two are two of my favorite ayat, so I'm sad to have to speak like this. But قدر الله. After hearing about the disbelievers and their condition in the dunya, which led to their sorry state in the akhirah, Allah explains who the person who has perfected iman, or who truly the believer is. Okay. So Allah said, Innama. Innama is a means of restricting. Okay, so we tend to translate it as only, okay, but it restricts what is coming. Okay. Innama yu'minu. Yu'minu is to believe. Okay, so it restricts iman in bi-ayatina, in our signs. So it restricts belief in our signs to alladhina, those who إِذَا ذُكِّرُوا, when they are reminded. When they are reminded biha, by the signs, okay, خَرُّوا سُجَّدًا, they fall down into sujood, into prostration. وَسَبَّحُوا, and they do tasbih, they exalt, they glorify. And we will go through the meaning of this. بِحَمْدِ رَبِّهِمْ, with praise of their Lord. Okay, Rabbihim, their Lord. وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ, and they are not يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ, they are not of those who have kibr, who have pride, or those who are arrogant. Okay, so those who believe in the signs. The signs here are referring to the general signs within the creation, okay, and the legislative signs in the religion and in the ayat of the Quran. Okay, so you have the general ayat, which are the signs within the creation, and then you have the signs, the ayat in the Quran, the legislative signs of the religion. Okay, so when advice comes to them through the Quran or on the lips of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or they are called to pay heed, pay attention, or they hear the message or the reminder, then kharru sujjada. Okay, we're going to talk about what it means that they fall down into prostration. But first, we just clarify what it means to be reminded. Okay, so it's reminded through the ayat in the creation and the ayat in the legislation. Or it is reminded by something in the religion, okay, whether it is by a hadith, or it is, you know, any sort of reminder we get of, you know, this is not permissible for you to do, or this is something that you should be doing. When they are reminded by them, kharru sujjada, okay? Now, it is not that you literally fall into sujood, no. This is only one part of it. What it means to fall down in sujood is that they would submit, and they would leave something for the sake of Allah, or they would do something for the sake of Allah. Okay, so they would submit. So when they are admonished by it, by the signs, they are reminded by it, they fall down in sujood in response. So they are overcome with humility and submissiveness, and they adhere to it. by سمعنا وأطعنا. Okay, by hearing and by obeying. Subhanallah. So this is actually what it means. This you can see in many of the tafasir, that it means to submit. It means to hear and obey. Okay? وَسَبَّحُوا, and they glorify. They do tasbih. Tasbih is when you negate anything from Allah that is not perfect. So you free Allah of any imperfections. Okay? You when you do tasbih, you are saying that Allah is perfect. He cannot make a mistake. So when He has legislated something for you, you know there is no mistake, and you know that it is perfect, and you remind yourself by doing tasbih. Okay? Or you are reminded not to do something, and you might struggle with it, but you remember that Allah is perfect, and if He has said something is impermissible, then there is perfection in that, and it is protection in that. So then you remind yourself by doing tasbih, and you cover that tasbih, or you envelope that tasbih with hamd, with praise. And you'll see many times tasbih and hamd, they come together. One of the best adhkar you can do, Subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. So you say Subhan, you free Allah of any imperfection. And you do hamd, which they come together. Why? Because hamd is when you affirm for Allah everything that is perfect. These two come together. There is negation and there is affirmation. There is another statement in our religion that we say that has both, has negation and has affirmation. And it is very important when it comes to our Islam, entering into Islam, affirming our Islam. What is this statement, everybody?
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله.
Yes, when you
وأشهد
testify.
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله.
Yes, Jazakallah khair. When you testify, La ilaha, there is no ilah, there is nothing that deserves truly to be worshipped. This is the negation, okay? Then you say illallah, except Allah, and this is your affirmation. It comes together. You can't have one without the other. You can't have, there is nothing that deserves to be worshipped without the affirmation of except Allah deserves to be worshipped. And you can't have just the affirmation that Allah deserves to be worshipped because you are not negating anything else from worship with Him. Here we say tasbih, we negate from Him anything that is imperfect. And then we do hamd, we affirm for Him everything that is perfect. Subhanallah, okay? And the Prophet ﷺ said to the effect of, yeah, Subhanallah, Alhamdulillah, they fill the scales. They fill, okay, that space between the earth and the sky. Subhanallah, okay? Because of what it is that you are saying about Allah when you do them. So these people who they truly believe in the ayat, those who when they are reminded, they submit, they humble themselves. They do sami'na wa ata'na, we hear and we obey, okay? And they do tasbih, and they join that tasbih with hamd, okay? It is mixed together, the tasbih and the hamd, the praise, okay? وَهُمْ لَا يَسْتَكْبِرُونَ, and they are not arrogant, okay? They are not arrogant. They don't feel that they are too above anything that Allah commands them to do. They don't feel that they are excused from anything that Allah commanded them to do, just because of who they are. Okay? They don't object or argue. Okay? Subhanallah, this is from the characteristics of those who believe. Now, Iman comes at different levels. Your belief comes at different levels. Okay? And there is Iman that is at a high level, that has been perfected, that has been completed. And then there is Iman where there is deficiency in the Iman. Now, when we see a hadith by the Prophet ﷺ, when he says things like, you will, Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir. The one who believes in Allah and in the last day, فَلْيَقُلْ خَيْرٍ أَوْ لِيَصْمُتْ. He will speak good, or he will be silent. That doesn't mean that if you ever speak anything that is not good, that then you are not a person of Iman. No, it means that the one who is able to do that, speak only good and keep away from saying anything that is not good, and they have completed their Iman. They have reached a higher level of Iman. And this is how the Iman is being talked about here. That their Iman is at such a level that objecting or arguing about the ayat of Allah is unthinkable to them. Rather, they surrender. They acknowledge the perfection of Allah, and they know that Allah would not reveal any command that would be a means of harm to them. And along with that, they are grateful. They don't feel burdened by the command. Okay? They are grateful. Subhanallah. So the tasbih is there, and then the hamd brings it up to a higher level, because they are grateful upon learning about something that is pleasing to Allah. And this reaction, that reaction is a sign of sincerity, that they listen in word and in action. If a person learns and he ignores, doesn't act upon it, doesn't care about implementing it, then this is not from complete Iman. There is a deficiency in that Iman. So believing in the ayat of Allah is not something that is small. It is a big deal. Okay? And a person can only believe when he has the capacity to accept and to acknowledge. And part of that acknowledging is acknowledging our own mistakes. So if someone corrects you, if someone says to you, this thing that you did, I don't think it was very helpful, or what you did, is not permissible, or, you really should try to do this because this is better, because Allah made it wajib. If a person then says, well, you don't know what's in my heart, or they try to justify it in some way, or they take offense at being reminded, then this shows a lack or a deficiency in the Iman, because part of being a true believer is that you can acknowledge your mistakes. Yeah, remember, إِذَا ذُكِّرُوا, when they are reminded. This shows us that the believers, they can forget. They can make mistakes. Okay? إِذَا ذُكِّرُوا, when they are reminded. In the same way in the Quran, when Allah talks about the muttaqun and the muhsinun, those who have taqwa, those who do good. إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً, when they commit a sin. أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُمْ, okay, or they wrong themselves by committing the sin. Yeah, ذَكَرُوا اللَّهِ, they remember Allah. اسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِمْ, and they seek forgiveness for their sins. No one is completely perfect when it comes to their actions, but you can perfect your Iman when it comes to your reaction when you are reminded, and your attitude when you are reminded, that you take the reminder, you try to make that change, or you strive to make that change that you may have been struggling with, or you may have forgotten about. So if someone reminds us, because we might be doing something wrong, or we might be upon something that is wrong, Okay? If we can't admit we are wrong, then this is a sign of a deficiency in the Iman. And this is something that we need to work on. Okay? And typically, generally, when we learn, okay, we tend to forget. Or we learn something, we implement it, then later we forget. When we are reminded, then we immediately change our actions. We don't try to find a fatwa that suits us or claim there is a difference of opinion in that, and you're not even aware whether that difference of opinion is valid or whether, there is even truly a difference of opinion. When we have this attitude, when we have the attitude of submission and surrendering, then this is when Allah gives us the ability to do. When we can't accept, then we deprive ourselves of that success and the tawfiq, the ability to do or to attain. Because in order to attain, our heart needs to be open and we need to be accepting. So there is a complete difference between humility and arrogance. And why does Allah mention sujood? Because sujood is a sign of submission and humility and servitude and acknowledging that we are small and we are weak. Yeah, I am nothing without you, Ya Allah. Acknowledging that we are weak and in need. And this is a means of attaining closeness to Allah. So if the ayat of Allah highlight our mistakes, okay, we try to accept that we are struggling with something, or we ask Allah for help with this, and then Allah will help us. Okay, subhanallah. We saw at the beginning of the surah that this is revelation min Rabbil Alameen, and there is la rayba fi, there is no doubt in it. We are not there is no arrogance, because arrogance is something that prevents you from accepting that you are wrong, or from accepting that you may need to make a change. This is arrogance, okay? In order to gain something, you have to give up something. If you want to travel, you have to spend money, okay? You want to, you want to raise, you want to raise children that are going to be a service to the ummah. You have to strive and you have to work hard, okay? You want to, subhanallah, you want to earn the reward of looking after elderly parents. This comes with sacrifice and it comes with striving. In order to gain something, you have to give up something. To gain a completeness of Iman, a person has to let go of what? His ego and his pride and his desires. Okay, and I see that there is questions about how to do the sajda. I will be talking about that. Inshallah, it's very simple. Okay. We see many examples during the lives of the Sahaba radiallahu anhum, the companions, that when they are reminded, they are immediately accepted. Didn't matter what position they had amongst their people. Once Umar ibn al-Khattab, the Amirul Mu'mineen, the leader of the believers, he was giving a khutbah. And at that time, many people were they were struggling because of the attitude towards the mahar of the woman. When you give a gift to the woman when you marry. Now, many of the men, they were struggling because the demand of the mahar was very high. So Umar ibn al-Khattab, during the khutbah, he was discouraging giving a lot of mahar to the women. And I think he limited it maybe to 400 dirhams. And then a woman stood up. A woman in the jama'ah, she stood up. Not a man, but a woman, okay? And she said, you have forbidden giving the mahar of more than 400 dirhams. Have you not heard the ayah? وَآتَاهُمْ إِحْدَاهُنَّ قِنْطَارًا. And you have given one of them a great amount, or a heap of wealth. Qintar is a heap of wealth, a heap of treasure. This is referring to the mahar that was given. Umar ibn al-Khattab, what did he do? He didn't say, yes, well, this is what I've put in place now. No, he said, Ya Allah, forgive me. All of the people have more understanding than Umar. He accepted immediately. Because why? Because the woman recited an ayah of the Quran or part of an ayah of the Quran. SubhanAllah. And there are many examples like this. And if we had time, we would go into them. But we don't have time. Okay, but do look into the biographies of the companions and you will see many. Radiallahu anhum. Now, this is an ayah of tilawa, sajdatut tilawa, okay, where when this ayah is recited or heard, then it is highly recommended to do a sajda when you recite, when you hear the ayah. It is not something that is obligatory, but it is highly recommended. When you do the sujood, whether you are standing, whether you are sitting, you say Allahu Akbar and you go into sujood. You do not need to wear hijab. You do not need to be in a state of wudu. You do not need to be facing the qibla. These are rulings that are required for salah, but not for the sajda of tilawa, okay, of recitation. If you are reciting this ayah repeatedly because you are memorizing it, then you only need to do the sujood once in the sitting, okay? If you are doing it, if you are then revising it the next day or in the evening, then you are saying it in another sitting, then you can do it again in the second sitting, okay? But it doesn't need to be repeated for the amount of times that you repeat the ayah. I think that's clear. If there is anything else that needs to be asked, if you are in the salah, you complete the ayah, you say Allahu Akbar, you go into sujood, which many of you will have experienced now that we reached the first sujood in the Quran. If the masjid you are going with is going juz by juz, okay, they will have reached the first sujood last night. And you will have seen how they did it. And then you come up and you continue the salah. If there are any questions regarding that, then please do ask. But otherwise, we will continue, inshallah, with the next ayah. If we quickly just cover the benefits of this ayah. Iman has signs, okay? And whoever claims Iman without a sign, then this sign is invalid, okay? Or this claim, sorry, is invalid. The place of the Iman, this is the second benefit, the place of the Iman is in the heart. So it is not truly known by us, but the actions are evidence and conditions that indicate the existence of Iman in the heart. The third benefit, Iman has levels. There is completeness and there is imperfection. And this ayah refers to the completeness, the perfection of Iman. The fourth benefit is that a sign of a believer is that he complies with the reminder. I will answer that question on YouTube in just a moment. The fifth benefit is that ignorance or forgetfulness can occur in a believing person. Okay. The sixth is the virtue of prostration. The sixth is the virtue of prostration. And Shaykh Uthaymeen mentioned the hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said, a servant is closest to his Lord when he is prostrating. And eighth, humbleness and humility is a characteristic of a believer. So when you give up something for the sake of Allah, that the reward of that cannot be measured. The reward of giving up something for the sake of Allah cannot be measured. Okay. The question on YouTube is, doesn't the ayah mean that they prostrated? Yes. Sujood, yes, is only one part of it. And the sujood signifies submission and compliance and acceptance and humility and surrendering, okay, and servitude. So yes, they would go into sujood, but it doesn't necessarily mean just sujood, okay? All of those other things that I mentioned, you know, if the ayah brings this about in a person, then they fall into this category of people who have completed their iman, okay? When we recite the ayah, yes, we do sujood. And inshallah, you will be from those people where the Prophet ﷺ said about them that when you read an ayah of sujood and you fall into sujood, the shaitan, he weeps and he says, I was commanded to do sujood and I disobeyed. And they were commanded to do sujood and they obeyed. And he weeps. Why has he wept? Because you surrender and you submit to Allah, something that he didn't do. And you are not directing that submission to him. Okay? Yes, sujood is something that we do. But when you look at the tafseer of the ayah, it is not when you are reminded of an ayah, you fall straight into sujood, and that's the only aspect of it. No, the meaning is that you submit. You don't necessarily have to go into sujood in order to show submission. Do you see? You don't have to go into sujood to show that submission. The submission is in the attitude and in the changes that take place after being reminded, and in the state of the heart when you are reminded. Is it open or is it closed to the reminder? Yes? I hope that's clear. Inshallah, Jazakallah khair to the sister who's asking for clarification, because it clarifies it for others as well. Now, Allah describes these people further, okay, in the next ayah. Allah says, تَتَجَافَى. Okay, now this word, jafa, okay, or tajafa means, tajafi is to distance yourself from something, or to be distant from something, to withdraw from something, to move away from something. Okay, and when it is connected with junub or jamb, which means the side, yeah, the side of the body, it means to distance from the bed, okay, because this is where you lie on your side. Tatajafa, if you can see this pattern, okay, usually this pattern of word or verb includes someone else, okay, like we have ta'awanu ala al-birri wat-taqwa, okay, cooperate with each other upon bir and taqwa, okay, tawasaw bil-haq, yeah, help each other or advise each other on upon the truth. Tatajafa, who is it that you are dealing with? Okay, it is the bed. Okay, I needed clarification for this, so I went back to, because it wasn't clear to me in the Tafseer of Shaykh Uthaymeen, and Tafseer Sa'di talks about this ayah in quite a lot of detail, and I don't know if anybody is watching, okay, but the last few years, Ahsan Hanif, he has been doing a detailed tafsir following Shaykh Sa'di's tafsir in Green Lane Masjid. I think this is the 3rd year. Anyway, last year, I think they did Surah Surah As-Sajdah. So I went back to his, how he explained this, because I remembered something, okay? And he said, and it so beautifully, I will talk about how he said it. He said, Tatajafa is said in the present tense. And he said this pattern involves 2 parties. The one who is rising from the bed, and the second being the bed. being the actual bed, the madaji', okay, which is the bed. These people, they are struggling with their beds. The present tense here, تتجافى جنوبهم, they withdraw their sides, عن المضاجع, from the beds. They withdraw their sides from the beds. So they are struggling themselves and the bed, okay? It is in the present tense. Why is it in the present tense? Because it is a continuous struggle. A continuous struggle when you are leaving the comfort of your bed. The struggle is there. Why? Because shaitan, he comes to them and it's cold and you are tired, yet they get up. Allah loves these people that they struggle with their beds and they withdraw from the beds. They are tired. They are deep in their sleep, but they get up. Allah loves these people. He is describing these people. And that's why the best form of the night prayer, if I forgot to mention, this is talking about when you rise, when you withdraw from the bed in order to worship Allah. The best form of the night prayer is the one that is done in the last third of the night. Why? Because they are the ones who they're going to sleep first. So then the struggle is more. And we see throughout the Quran, those of you who are doing Tafseer, Juz 27, we have seen it. Okay? Throughout the Quran, Allah talks about these people who remember Him and stand in front of Him in that last part of the night. And Allah makes special mention of these people, okay, for those who struggle in the night for His sake. Why the night? They are sacrificing their sleep and their rest in a time where nobody else can see them, okay? In order to do this action, it requires complete sincerity. No one is going to wake up in the night for the sake of the people or to be seen by the people, because this is a time where nobody sees you. Okay, so they sacrifice for the sake of Allah. Allah makes a special mention of them. And what is it that they are doing in that time? يَدَعُونَ رَبَّهُمْ, they call upon their Lord. They supplicate to their Lord, okay, in order to attain what they will benefit from in the dunya and in the akhirah. They ask Allah in regards to the dunya and they ask Allah in regards to the akhirah. The most comprehensive dua we have, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنًا. Allah, yeah, we ask Allah, we ask our Rabb to give us good in the dunya and in the akhirah. رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ, and to save us from the punishment of the fire. So they supplicate to their Lord for their worldly matters and their spiritual, their religious, their akhirah matters. And they do this khawfan, with hope, out of hope, with fear or out of fear, wa tama'an, and with hope or out of hope. Allah is combining the two qualities here. Fear, why fear? Okay, what is it that they fear? They fear that their good deeds will be rejected. So they ask Allah to accept them. And they hope that those deeds will be accepted. They fear the punishment of Allah and they hope for His reward. They fear the consequences of their sins and they hope in the mercy of Allah. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. And mimma, two words, min and ma. And from what? رَزَقْنَاهُمْ. رَزَقْنَا, we provided, hum, them. يُنْفِقُونَ, they spend. And they spend out of what we have provided for them. Whether it is small or big. Allah didn't say how much. He just said spend. He didn't say who to spend on. Didn't say who the recipient is. So this is a general spending, okay? It includes the obligatory spending, such as zakah and the expiation, okay? Spending on the families, the wives, and the relatives. And it includes the spending that is encouraged, the sadaqah that is the voluntary sadaqah, spending in order to be kind, spending in order to help, spending in order to alleviate the difficulty, whether they are strangers, whether they are relatives. Okay, Allah describes these people as the prayer of the night, that they call upon Allah in dua out of fear, out of hope, and they are the people of sadaqah. In the previously, okay, much of the sadaqah was done at night by the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. Okay, there are stories of Abu Bakr and Umar. Only after they passed away, somebody would say, you know, they would come to me at night and they would help me in this and this and this. They would go at night. Why? Night is when they would sacrifice their rest, sacrifice their sleep. There are no distractions at that time. And this is the time when no one would see them. They would be hidden from the people if they were physically going to give it. And Allah loves those who sacrifice their rest for His sake. From the benefits of the ayah, before we finish, is the virtue of the night prayer. Allah mentioned it here in the context of praise. But we know from the sunnah that it should not be all night. It should be a portion of the night. The second is the virtue of dua and calling to Allah in the night. The third is that the one who makes dua, he is swinging between the hope and the fear. And this should be the state of the believer all of the time. Too much fear can lead to despair. Too much hope can lead to carelessness and neglect. And the last is the virtue of spending with what Allah has provided for you. And we will stop there, inshallah. My apologies for going over time. But I hope you understand we had to give these ayat some time. I apologize again for my voice, although after talking a lot, it seems to have, instead of getting worse, seems to sound a bit better, alhamdulillah. Okay, anything that needs clarifying? Any questions? Everybody's okay? Yes, then we will stop there, inshallah. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.